So I have all the pieces cut out for my Devon. So this is my top zipper, which I've already hand basted my zipper pieces at a 45-degree angle. And it's very important that you hold it at a 45-degree angle and make sure that it stays in this position when you're sewing it. Make sure that this is pushed out. And that's why someone commented that their zipper was pulling apart at the wrong end. That's because it has to be straight when you're stitching it into the bag. You have to be very careful when putting it in that way. So to start the bag, we're going to need this piece, which I already have interfaced and stabilized, and this. So I'm just going to kind of put everything off to the side here for just a moment. So I want my zipper opening from the left side, so that direction. I'm going to flip this over, find the center. I'm just going to kind of pinch it here, and that's going to do the job. I'm going to find the center of this piece. Just line those up. So I'm also going to take the pocket lining, which is this piece here. I'm going to match that up at the sides and clip that right on top, making sure that my zipper tape stays nice and straight. Okay, and I'm going to stitch that right across there. Now we have this stitched on. I'm going to flip that up and finger press it. And then roll both pieces back. And I'm going to top stitch. I'm using an 1/8 of an inch top stitch length, or an 1/8 of an inch width from the edge of the fabric to top stitch. Okay, so we have our front zipper panel started. I'm going to bring the back up and line that top edge. I'm going to go ahead and move my zipper pull over here out of the way. I'm folding this up, the back up like this, and I'm lining up the sides and the top edge. And then I'm going to baste right across there. Okay, I'm going to bring my zipper pull back to the middle. I'm going to grab my 2 side pieces. So these pieces are going to get lined up with the top of the zipper and the edge. We're going to readjust our stitch length. I'm going to go ahead and remove my zipper foot, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm ready to stitch these. So as I attach these side panels, that's also going to secure the sides of this zipper pocket. Okay, I'm going to trim off my excess zipper there. And I actually cut my zipper a little long just so I would have a little excess there. And we're going to top stitch. And I do like the 2 rows of top stitching that is indicated in the pattern, so I'm going to do that. Okay, so there, that panel is done. We'll trim off the bottom in just a moment. So the next step is to add our top piece. This is the front top. I'm just going to go ahead and move my zipper back this way. I'm not too concerned about centering it because it's going to be over the end on both sides anyway. Let's put that right sides together, yeah? Okay, I'm going to put on my zipper foot and go ahead and sew this on. Alright, so I'm just going to adjust my stitch length back down to where I would normally keep it for a join seam. And now we're going to top stitch. Again with the 2 lines of stitching. So the next thing we need to do is trim down the sides so that we have one even panel. So I'm going to take this over to my cutting mat and I'll be right back. Okay, so now we have our front panel and our back panel. These should be the same size. And they are slightly off because I did use a number 5 zipper here, so I can actually either trim the front down or cut a new back panel. I'll probably just trim the front down. Probably do it from the bottom since I've got a little wiggle room back here. But yeah, it's about 1/4 of an inch off. Okay, so now it's time to do the main zipper. So again, I want it to open on the left. So I'm going to flip this zipper open, or over. Actually, I probably should get it to the, find the center first. Now you can actually take a pin, make a little mark. I never, ever, 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 ever cut my zipper tape because it will unravel on you. So just within the seam allowance there, I can mark my center. If my pin's going to actually write on it. You know, I can see that. So now I'm flipping my zipper. And I'm going to line it up with the center of the front. Now you can baste your zipper on if you'd like. I don't usually, even when I do this sort of zipper. So you want to make sure that this part of your zipper stays at a 45-degree angle and this part of your tape is flush up against that top edge of your panel. And you want to make sure it's that way on both ends. So I'm going to go ahead and clip on my lining, and I'm using waterproof canvas so I don't have to interface it or anything. I'm lining up the sides. Make sure that zipper tape stays flush with the top of both pieces of fabric or vinyl or whatever you're using. Right, and now we're ready to sew. Oh gosh, I just realized how loud that is when I change my stitch length. I'm going to move my mic just a moment. Okay, there we are. Got the mic moved. Hopefully the changing of stitch length and things like that won't be too loud now. I will apologize profusely. I am so sorry. I was trying out something a little bit different because my wireless mic broke after like the second use. The mic didn't break. The clip that clips it to my shirt broke. And so I had to get creative. And I'm using a Wonder Clip to actually clip it to my shirt. So I'm just going to move my zipper out of the way. And the whole time I'm paying close attention to make sure that that zipper tape stays lined up with the top of my fabrics. Now normally I top stitch both the lining fabric and the exterior fabric, but since the pattern very specifically says do not top stitch the lining, I'm going to not top stitch the lining. I think with this zipper it's going to be just fine with not top stitching the lining, simply because there's enough space between the edge of or between the seam and the zipper teeth that the lining should not get caught in there. So I'm going to go ahead and, this is a first, but I'm going to go ahead and top stitch this. Okay, and now I'm going to press my lining back toward my interior fabric. Yeah. I'm going to go over and trim off 1/4 of an inch off of this, and I will be right back. There we go, that's taken care of. Okay, so now I'm going to do the other side. So I'm going to lay down my exterior fabric, or my vinyl in this case. Paying special care to line up my sides and this top edge, just to make sure that everything is nice and even. I'm going to add my lining fabric, in this case waterproof canvas, and we're going to stitch that together. I'm going to flip this out. Separate from the lining, and I'm going to top stitch. I'm going to open that all the way. There we go. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is mark and cut away 3/4 of an inch from each corner of both the exterior pieces and the lining pieces. Okay, now that we have those marked, we're just going to go ahead and clip those out of the way. Okay, we're ready to attach all of our pieces together and turn this into a bag. So the first thing I need to do, of course, very important anytime you're making a bag, Actually, something that I hadn't done yet was pressed this seam out. I'm just finger pressing this. It works pretty well with marine vinyl, so it's not that big a deal. But I want to make sure that this zipper is open. It has to be open. I'm not going to open it all the way. I'll open it to about right there. So now I'm going to move that to the center as well. I'm going to bring my bottom pan or my exterior panels together and start clipping everything. I want to line up the seams on the side so that everything is nice and even. And do that on both sides. Actually, do my clip trick. I have another red clip here somewhere. I usually use my red clips at my start and stop points when I'm sewing something like this. And we'll leave a space that's kind of large enough to get my hand in. It's a lot easier to turn it if you can get your hand into the opening. On a small bag like this, sometimes it can be a little difficult. Okay. Sometimes it can be a little difficult. But, you know, we make it work. Okay, I'm going to switch back to my regular presser foot and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to adjust my stitch length. I've done pretty good this time about adjusting my stitch length the way I'm supposed to. Normally I forget it, which I'm going to forget it in the next, 10 minutes or so. So I'm going with a 3/8 inch seam allowance for my lining. When I get to the exterior, I'm going to go down to a 1/4 inch. Okay, so now I'm going to clip all my threads here, just so they're out of the way. And it's time to box the corners. I don't do a whole lot of trimming of my side seams for this bag, because stitching it at a 1/4 inch, I just don't think it's necessary. I will trim down just the sides of the lining since the seam allowance was a little bit wider there. So I'm going to reach through to this end of the bag and I'm going to pinch my corners. Now this part is super, super important. So I want to make sure that this bottom seam here and this side seam here are flush against each other. So I'm actually going to pull the bag open like this and make sure that those seams, and you can look through the little hole there, and you can see if those seams are touching. This is important. So now I'm going to press my bottom seam in one direction and my side seam in the other direction. Let's see if I can get that to focus. Hello? Hi. There it is. So I have them pushed away from each other. And that is going to give me a nice, more flat surface. I don't know any better way to put it. So I'm going to go back over and sew that at 1/4 inch. And I'm making sure that those seams stay even, stay touching each other the whole time. This is what's going to keep your bag from being wonky. I know it's kind of hard to see what I was doing right there when I was sewing because my fingers in the bag were in the way, but camera angles and all that. So I'm going to show you that again. I'm going to make sure that the bottom of the bag is open. So I'm pushing it out with my fingers right over here. I don't know if you can see. I'm going to look through the little hole and make sure that the seams are touching. And I don't know if you can see it, but those seams in there, they're touching. They're even with each other. So I'm going to look at which direction my bottom seam is going on this side and make sure that it's going in the same direction on this side. So on this side, my side seam is going to go to the left and my bottom seam is going to go to the right, and I'm going to feel with my fingers and make sure that those seams are still touching. Okay, I'm just going over to the needle and it's going to get sewn down. Okay. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the lining. I'm going to make sure that those seams are lined up against each other. I'm going to push my bottom one way and my side the other. And you can really feel with this if they're against each other. And then at 3/8 inch seam allowance, again for the lining. And this one I'm going to give a little trim. And then the same for this side. So this time my bottom seam is going to go to the left and the side is going to go to the right. So I'm going to do that. And really feel, open it up and feel and make sure that those seams are nestled against each other. Yep. Give a little trim there. Okay, so it's time to birth this bag. So I've pushed my zipper all the way open on the inside. I'm just going to give a little push in one of the corners. Once I get that started, I can roll the lining out as I push that through. I'm going to go into the bag with my hand and just really start pushing everything out. Make sure that my corners over here are pushed out nicely on both sides. And also over here on the edges. Okay. So I'm going to audition it before I seal up the bottom, just to make sure that we're nice and straight and good to go. I'm going to press that down, give this corner or this side over here a nice little press. And that is not a wonky bag. It's kind of hard to tell because my camera's on an angle. But yeah. So we'll likely create a wristlet to go with this one as well. And it's just going to attach to the, I don't know if you can see it, the hole in the zipper pull. So I'm going to pull this bottom out. Give that a little finger press there. Make sure that the front and the back are nice and even. Stick a clip on that for a second and grab one of my little tags here that I got from Lauren's shop. I love these. It's the "You Look Really Pretty Today" tags. So I'll put a link to Lauren's shop down in the description if anybody's interested in picking these up. They're so cute. And I imagine selling a bag and having someone receive it and find that little tag on the inside. And I don't know, I think it would feel good to find that. I'm a little anal about it not being even, so I tape it. There we go. So I'm going to tuck that right into my seam here. And then we're going to stitch. And I sew as close to the edge of the fabric as I can get, while staying on the fabric. I think I might have missed the back part of the fabric there. I did not. Yay. Now I'm just going to hit that with a lighter real quick. Set those threads. Probably not a good idea to do it with your finger, like I did. So there's the inside of our bag. And I feel like this side needs to be pushed up a little bit more. I have a couple of different tools here that I could use. I have my seam ripper. I can just get in there and kind of give it a good push. I think that's better than it was. But there we go. There's our little Devon. And my camera angle is making it look like it might be just a little off. It's not, I promise. So there we are. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please leave a like and subscribe to and hit the bell to get notifications, and I will see you all next time. We focus. Hello. There it is.